RB hero action and even Tistina? Make sure you guys smash the crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more Oz content. We actually have a competent RB list to start things off here, and honestly I thought it was really cool to see, you know, the evolution that RB has been kind of going through in the meta. You know, you do have a lot of people that do like picking this deck up and actually giving it a shot within today's meta, and you're going to notice a lot of the RB cards themselves you're going to just kind of slot into the deck as one-ofs because, I mean, these are just going to be armaments to be able to kind of work through and honestly kind of get the best value that you can possibly get. Now, because of, you know, the way this deck works, you are going to be maximizing on the Funk Dock and Stage Landing, but you got to remember, Stage Landing has that very disappointing downside of, unfortunately, you know, you're going to get extra deck locked out of 1500 and below. So, I mean, you do have an Orcus monster you can access. You do have the Barricade Borg blocker along with the Clockwork Knight. You have some cool little tools at your disposal that I don't really think that you would necessarily consider with this. We've also seen some other variants coming out where they are testing out like Sky Striker cards, because I mean the Sky Striker cards do meet all of the criteria. You know, when you summon them, they are 1500 attack, and then obviously, you know, the modifier applies for how many spells you'd have in the graveyard for the Kagari. Also, Hornet Drones being able to basically bridge you into, you know, the Vulcan booster basically off of one card is also not incredibly terrible to consider. Also, I do like that we are playing the Mega Fleet here to be able to chonk up the opponent's field. And also, special shout out to Denko Seka. The more that we've seen Denko Rekka kind of popping up on the back burner, I think this card just being able to seal Draco Tail's fate is really, really good. It's one of those cards you just get to slam down and get a pretty immediate response from the opponent of just being sad. Also, playing one of each of the traps in the main deck, actually not siding them, is pretty strong. Next up is heroes. I have been tracking as many different hero variants as I can just to see, you know, who's going to be the most successful here. Now, the good news is as Furnace has kind of gone up in price, you don't actually have to play multiple copies of Furnace. This build is getting away with playing one, and we are slotting in one Dusk Crow here. Both of these, I think, are going to work just fine for the ratios that, you know, you're kind of going to be working with for this. Now, I do see we are playing two Vion, which is kind of nice. I mean, you've got double polymerization built into the main deck here, which is going to help out. Also, this build is choosing to play two Contrast Hero Chaos. Contrast Hero Chaos, I think, is probably one of the most important monsters that your deck can kind of get access to at this point. And obviously, I mean, this card was formerly a massively hard monster to make, but now that, you know, we've actually got main deck masked hero monsters, and, you know, we have Vapor coming later on in the year here, where you're going to be seeing finally the water monster making that much of a difference for the deck. You know, this card just becomes way easier to actually access. The build's also playing two Dark Law, which is fine, you know, being able to toggle into this. We are playing one Mass Change in the main, side decking the additional two. I can understand that. Like, these are good cards. They do help out the deck quite a lot for at least, you know, setting up an end board. And I mean, Dark Law, unfortunately, is going to be one of those central pieces to getting the job done. So I can definitely imagine why, you know, we're going to continue to kind of explore and see these options actually coming together. So time will tell where we're going to go with heroes, but it looks like for the time being, you've got a pretty good draft here to mess around with today's meta. Next up was a top 32 finish with Tistina. Now, you know, all, you know, jokes aside for what you're working with here, this was a pretty interesting challenge to come up with here, because in Genesis format, you got to be a little bit restrictive on your points here. You have two big numbers here to work with, 50 and 50, but that's it. Those are the only two big things you got to worry about. I also do see we have the Fountain Spirit coming in here and being a challenger, but the reason why this deck is actually able to work is Tistina's just kind of underrated. You know, I don't think players are really going to respect this deck as a whole. And also the fact that, you know, you get to see tier elements actually seeing some play in, you know, this format, which is kind of nice. Obviously, you know, point restrictions are a little bit hefty in the department, but I don't think that that's a terrible thing. You know, I also do see, holy Shaddoll Fusion, Batman. Being able to generically Shaddoll Fusion down Construct is pretty good. I mean, also, this gives you immediate access to getting a Tistina monster, or at least getting one of the fatties into rotation, so you can kind of keep, you know, things going. But I genuinely think that when you're... One of the cool things about Genesis format is just exploring the format, you know, getting the chance to see, you know, why a certain deck is actually doing well, and understanding, you know, meta calls. Like, that's always going to be a big scenario when it gets into these sort of things. So, you know, especially Shaddoll still remaining a tech choice within this format's really good. So I definitely like all the water options coming together here, and also the Supreme Sea Mare also kind of helping things out. So definitely a meta challenger for sure. Next up, we have Enneacraft. Now, there has been a lot of interesting discussions recently with, you know, what's going to be the optimal build for this. I do see that this list chose to play one Zoborg the Mega Monarch and one Vanity's Fiend. I don't hate this, but I feel like wouldn't you want to maximize more on Zoborg the Mega Monarch? I guess my complaint here is like, I have to see these and draw them. They're both going first monsters for the initial setup, but it feels like Zoborg the Mega Monarch just usually feels better. Also, there are 2 extra slots for this, which I would probably just slot in additional Albions to be able to kind of keep the lights going with this. The Incredible Ecclesia would be a good one too, to get the extra advantage off of this. You're downplaying how important this card feels like it's supposed to be in this deck. And exploring Enneacraft, especially in the current day and age, this deck has been kind of forgotten about. It is still very much a rogue contender, and you still can very much do some dumb things with it. But truthfully, if players aren't fully aware of, you know, the discussions, or like dedicating to a heavy card like Zoborg. And I was reading a lot of the Enneacraft group. A lot of them do think that Zoborg is the best way to go. You know, shaving however many cards you can get off your opponent's extra deck with this, getting the entire knowledge of the opponent's extra deck. That's another crazy thing too. It's like getting access to every tech option your opponent has in those 15 cards can make or break the situation, versus, you know, oh, I made a Vanity's Fiend and now he just got dropletted. Like, oh shit, what am I supposed to do? Like, it does kind of crumble apart quite a lot in, you know, the double setup for things. So some little things to kind of think about in the discussion. And then we've got Lunalights. Now, Lunalights still kind of remain the Oogie Boogie man in the room. There are some little cool things that you can do. Now, this list was exploring double Tenki to be able to get the search. We were only playing one copy of the Fractal, which I think is fine. We've also got the triple heavy poly in the side deck. I can get behind this, I suppose. You know, heavy polymerization is still a very good card, but the decision to main deck them versus side deck them has been coming up quite a lot lately in the discussion, what you want to go with. I also do like, they didn't want to go too much further over the 42 card limit. You do see we have a Tenki here. We've also got the Fractal down here as well. I also found it very cool this list was actually playing the Serenade Dance. A lot of lists, just, I have not seen this card really showing up at all. It's still a good card, but alright, I do see we are playing the Guardian Chimera down here. Just 2 copies of the Liger Dancer. Liger Dancer as a 2-of has become more normalized at this point. I really do feel like if you're trying to maximize on these at larger numbers, you're just going to run into some consistency issues along the way. And also, the Triple Mistaken Arrest going to town here. Probably one of the best side deck cards you can kind of toss in at your opponent right now. But that's all we have for decks today. I'm honestly quite impressed by the challengers that we are seeing. There's just a lot of interesting decks that you can kind of just pick up right now and work with, whether or not it be a meta challenger or a rogue challenger. You know, they're both actually working out, and that's actually kind of cool. You guys have a good rest of your day, all right? Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.